Hey, pickleballers, and welcome to another episode of the PickleBros podcast. As always, thank you for your likes, comments, messages, and subscriptions. And this week, we are shouting out Pickleball Gangsta. It's a new pickleball apparel company started by a guy here in town. We're actually talking with him about getting some PickleBros shirts out with him for you guys to purchase. He just launched his company, so he's going to have some new designs coming out. So he's just a fresh start. But we would love if you guys could go over to Pickleball Gangsta and support one of our fellow guys here in Colorado Springs. Today's topic will be the bros spill all of our best baiting secrets. How do you get your opponents to do things that are not in their best interest? It's going to be a really interesting conversation. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. But first, we got to go through a tourney recap and what's our beef. So, Tim, you and I had a tournament over the last weekend. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go. So it was over at MVP, which I think we've talked about before here. It's a big place for tournaments around here. Actually, my first time playing in a tournament over at MVP, so I was pretty excited, and it was super fun. There was a lot of waiting around, but it was cool because all of our buddies were out there, so it was great to watch each other and just hang out. My girls were with me. I pulled them out of school early on our second day of school, by the way.
Good dad.
Yeah. Dad of the year. I love that.
Thank you. So it was fun, though. So I partnered with Louie, and there were two pools, and then the top two in each pool would play against each other for gold, and the runners-up would play for silver. That's how it was set up. And so we made it through our pool, and we had one less team than the other pool in our pool. So we got done pretty early. We went undefeated, and so that put us in the finals. We had to wait around for a little bit because the other pool they all had to play each other in the round robin, so it took a little bit longer. But we matched up against Matt and Jason in the final. My partner was Louie. It's my second time playing with him in a tournament, and we did not pull it out. We lost 11-6, 11-7, and that led to a lot of post-tournament analysis that you guys had to sit through over Marco Polo for like days. But that's kind of how it goes. But overall, it was super fun. Reasonably happy with the result, but not really. I would have much rather have gotten gold, and I was kind of hoping with Louie as a partner that I could have pulled that off, but maybe next time. It was fun though.
Hey, yeah. ain't nothing wrong with silver. Come on, that's a good result, right?
Not all silvers are created equal, unfortunately.
Indeed. Your and Louie's struggles together continues to baffle me because you guys are two absolute monsters. And it has been really fun to dissect sort of why you guys struggle with each other. But I was in that same tournament on the other side of the bracket. And Tim, I'm not sure your opinion on this, but my side of the bracket was way heavy loaded.
Stacked
compared to yours. Which I actually think hurt you and Louie in the end because you guys kind of walked through your round robin and you didn't really get challenged until the end. I had some barn burner matches. I played with our buddy Justin Bruner, who plays at GCU, ranked 8th in the nation as a team, I believe. He's a left-handed guy. We had a lot of fun. We did drop our first match to Sean and Mike McGregor, but then we won out from there. We took down Jason and Matt pretty decidedly. I will be talking about some of the strategies and the baiting strategies we employed later on in the episode. It was a lot of fun. And then we ended up going to the third, fourth match as the runner-ups in our bracket. And we lost to Mike Lee and Jim Peterson, who are absolute units, but that hurt to take fourth place to those guys. You know how Mike talks during points, especially if he knows you, he'll get in your head.
I was curious to see if he did that in tournaments too, and he absolutely does.
Yes.
It's the same Mike Lee.
The same guy.
Wasn't your record the same as two other teams in your pool and it came down to point differential? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We had a 3-way tie, 3 teams at 3-1. Matt and Jason had 19 point differential. We had 15, and then Sean and McGregor had 12. So hey, when you got a 3-way tie, you have to go to some sort of tiebreaker. If you want to be assured gold medal, don't lose. It's how it shook out. And by the way, on paper, I do think Matt and Jason are a stronger team than Justin and I. We just brought the thunder and played really smart against them. And, anyone can fall. Anyone can take anyone down. I actually wasn't too heartbroken about it. I was happy to see Louie and Tim in the final. Unfortunately, they failed me. They couldn't bring a gold home for PickleBros.
Yeah, that was a huge win against Jason and Matt, two basically 5.0 players.
Yep.
And you did right by the PickleBros in winning that match. Ian, you've come a long way the last 7 or 8 months from not even really a real 4-5 to being right there with these. Well, you beat these 5-0s, so
Yeah.
Good job, good for you and Justin. Really, to be honest, I was surprised when I saw that result, and I was extremely proud of you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I still drop like a 4-0, but the rest of my game is
Oh, that's not true.
But I was watching some of those streamed games too. And Tim, your pool, which you just walked through, like you guys, you talk about struggles with Louis. Like you wouldn't have noticed anything watching that because just you guys were in sync, playing well. I think sitting for 2.5 hours waiting for that final killed you.
Yeah.
And that's just tough. That's part of the tournament experience. I get it. But if you walk through the pool and then land a team like Jason and Matt in the finals after waiting, like that's a tough task. But watching Ian, I watched your games too. You were tournament Ian, man, was sharp. Like you were painting lines. You were not missing. You were consistent. And I've never met Justin, but could kind of feel the play style between you two. And you were the killer. You were the finisher, and really brought some really high quality play. So to Jesse's point of over the last 7 months, you were formidable and scary. Like I was watching you, I was like, "Ooh, you're scary." And Tim, the match that I watched with you and Louis, I was like, "Yep, good luck, whoever's on the other side of you." Yeah. And that's what I saw. So good job, PickleBros. And I wanted to shout out too. We have in the Colorado Springs community, we have people who are fans of the PickleBros podcast, and we had a couple. What do we call them? Pickle sisters, who got to rock some of the PickleBros gear and took a first place, albeit it was a rained out first place.
Yeah,
they would say that, but they said, we're going to wear the gear and we want to represent the PickleBros, and they came in strong. And so Lisa and Ellen, we see you out there. Thanks for representing. You're our people. Well done.
100%. Yeah, it really bummed that they got rained out, but I felt really good about them as a combination in the women's bracket for sure. So, all right, guys, excellent tournament recap. We're now going to move into the honorary Stolp segment. What's your beef? Stolp, passing off to you first, man. What's your beef?
Oh, I love this segment. And it doesn't, just because I'm recovering from a live liver donor surgery doesn't mean I don't have beef. And I got beef. And my beef is with the general public today. Like I have beef with the general public when I talk about pickleball, because like if you run into me at the grocery store or wherever I'm out and about, like within the first 3 sentences, I'm talking about pickleball and the PickleBros. And if somebody comes at me and says, "Oh, isn't that the sport my grandma plays? Isn't that just for old people? Like, isn't pickleball just some thing that my 75-plus-year-old generation plays?" That gets under my gears. I'm like, and then I just, okay, sit down, people. How much time do you got? Do you know the top female player in the world, 16, to Ben Johns is 23. This is a younger generation sport. I have a podcast. We're all different generations. This touches everybody across all the generations. Don't call it an old people sport. It's not just for old people. It really grinds my gears when people associate the word pickleball and the older generation. This is a multi-generation sport. So if you're out there listening for the first time, pickleball is the real deal. Don't think it's just for your grandma and grandpa. That's my beef.
Pickleball haters, sit down. Class is in session. Stolp is teaching a lesson today. Jesse, what's your beef?
My beef pertains to the articles I'm seeing over the last few months about the scourge of pickleball injuries. Have you guys seen any of these articles?
Yes.
Yeah. So typically they'll cite some report showing, that many people are hurt playing pickleball, either acute injuries like falls or overuse injuries. And no doubt that this happens. We all know people who've been injured. I've had overuse injuries. It's part of the sport. Some of these articles have a very sinister tone. One of them was titled "The Pickleball Peril," and some of them cite a study that was published in 2020 in the Journal of Emergency Medicine by Mathis Forrester. And he estimated that there are 19,000 pickleball injuries per year treated in U.S. emergency rooms. And I'm sure the number's higher now because pickleball has grown in the last few years. So I think that that's true. I think people do get hurt playing pickleball. But I did a little research on PubMed and noticed that the same author did a study on dodgeball injuries. There's, I think, 5,000 a year. And then another team using the same methodology did golf-related injuries, 30,000 a year, and stair-related injuries, 1.08 million injuries per year on stairs.
Can't walk up those stairs.
No, you gotta stay on that
Right.
first level.
Right. So if you're worried about injuries, definitely do not climb stairs. Do not take a bath or a shower because there's 200,000 people a year falling in the bathtub. I mean, life is full of risk, right? And if you do any kind of physical activity, and by the way, every doctor will tell you that physical activity is important. We have a problem with too much sedentary behavior in the world. And so, we want to get out there and exercise, but anything you do, there's going to be risk, right? If you hike, you can fall. If you run, you can sprain your ankle. Basketball, football injuries are common. So I just wish that these articles would put some proper context when they talk about pickleball injuries. That's my beef.
I love that, Jess. And I would also love for him to add at the end of his article that life also has this unfortunate statistic where it ends in 100% mortality rate. So
I would like to see too, just the age range of those injuries. Though you said 19,000 or something like that. Like as the sport grows, we talked about that, and as my beef is, it's not for grandmas and grandpas only. My thought is that people in that older generation are coming into the sport as a first time activity in a long time. And maybe the older generations are the ones landing in the hospital room. And that's just a product of growth, I think. So
how do you measure the health, the social aspect? I mean,
huge.
every pickleball player I know here in town is a psycho. We play way more, like the amount of exercise we get is way more than just like your casual treadmill or lifting person. Like there's no way the net goes down in terms of
Oh,
pickleball's
absolutely.
benefit.
And I wish those articles would talk about the tens of millions of Americans who have cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, all of these problems that exercising, might help. But they leave that out. And that's my big beef.
Jesse's giving away his cards into what his PhD was in. Tim, what's your beef?
All right, so I want to reiterate that these beefs are never personal. I'm not trying to call anybody in particular out, but here is something that I am beefing on.
I'm nervous already.
I know. It's like when you say, "Hey, no offense," but
who's Tim gonna get today?
Right. So okay, it is personal, but it's not about any of you three. All right. So I'm not going to drop names either. So I've talked about the league that I'm doing here. I have to invoke the word duper one more time because it is a duper league. I feel gross doing that. But so for this league, it is self-scheduled. So this is very dependent on people being proactive in scheduling their matches, or else the entire league suffers, right? So I kind of do that. I set up these leagues and I just kind of assume that's what's going to happen, that people are going to want to play their matches. In order to play their matches, they have to call, they have to email, they have to text, they have to over communicate, right? And well, here we are in the playoffs of my current league, and you can't play those playoff games unless this person over here is able to schedule their match. And what we're dealing with is there are 3 different brackets that are affected because somebody is non-communicative, and it's just that simple. And I'm sitting here at home with my medals, itching to hand these out to the winners, and I'm not going to be able to do that because of lack of communication on the part of somebody. So it is what it is, I suppose. But man, it's making me rethink doing this in the future because it's such a buzzkill. So that's my beef.
Do you think, Tim, that it would be better? So it's called Duper Flex League, the flex being that people schedule these things wherever and whenever they want. Do you think it would be better if it was like, this is going to be every Saturday at 8 a.m. at such and such location? And so people, when they commit, that's all taken care of. That's all set up.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I think it would be a lot easier if I had a set arrangement with some facility or some court somewhere where everybody knew exactly where to be. I could always be confident that there would be courts available for that very purpose. I haven't worked that into the deal yet, but I mean, I guess going forward, if there were an antidote to this kind of issue, then that's what it would be. So I would have to figure that out. So that's a good point.
But that does present its own problems in a way where some people maybe are out of town. And like, for instance, Louie and I, we got all of our matches in this iteration of the league done a week early because he had to leave on vacation, right? So we just front loaded all of our matches. And if it was a reoccurring scheduled thing, you can't do that. So I think I definitely, I hear what you're saying, that is a solve for it, but I still think the Duper Flex League works. You just need to have people who are, I don't even know if responsible is the right word, even though it might be just
realistic.
Being realistic about what you can handle in terms of your own schedule.
Yeah, and you have a 1 strike you're out rule, and I think that's going to be the case too. Is like whoever your story is about is like, hey, you signed up. You didn't commit on your side of the, your responsibilities. Thanks for playing. You're not coming back. And that's that's part of your league manager, responsibilities, which is not fun. It just, why does it have to come to that? Just schedule your damn games.
Well, here we are. We're trying to figure this out on the fly. I think I've heard some good suggestions, and it's kind of making me more optimistic. So what we could do is have one day that is set apart for matches being played. And hopefully when you see that, when you sign up, you're like, oh yeah, I can make Saturdays at 8 a.m. And if you can't, you just self-schedule.
Right.
So maybe it's a hybrid.
Ooh, a hybrid would work.
You'd have to reconsider maybe point structure too, because it's 2 out of 3 games to 21, right? Like if you have 8 to 12 teams showing up playing games to 21 times 3 games, that's a lot of court time.
Yeah. And I guess when you put it like that, I never really considered that's, way more of an investment than a lot of people have to make when they play their official matches. So I guess I'm kind of happy that as many matches get played as they do, I suppose, but still bugs me. And that's my beef.
People just need to prioritize pickleball as the single most important thing in their life. And
that's absolutely right.
Everything else gets pushed aside.
I will say that for me, the Duper Flex Leagues have been great. It has required some persistence in scheduling, and that has been a little frustrating at times, but I've gotten all my games scheduled, so no complaints here.
Yeah. All right, guys, and my final beef is a little bit of pickleball pettiness, actually, that I have recently discovered. As we get better and better, there are more and more people who kind of look to us for credibility, right? What are our thoughts on how they play? And then also that when you have a podcast, whether that should actually lend you more credibility or not, it does. And so my beef this week is when you get caught between 2 players who are arguing and comparing themselves to each other, saying, I'm better than you, when really they are barely 4-0 players. And so they start texting me and then text me another thread and screenshotting this and sending me this. And I get wrapped up in the middle of this thing where I'm like, why are you guys even worried about comparing yourselves to one another? Look to the people who are way better than you. That's who you should be chasing. Like Greg Williams, one of our resident pros in town. He's the one I'm looking up to try and chase. Sorry, Stolt, but you're nothing to me. I'm not worried about you.
Okay, good.
I'm worried about going like to the guys who are definitively above me. So I've had to deal with that drama recently. And I was just like, why are we even having these conversations when it doesn't matter? Just drill, just get better, and chase guys who are significantly better than you.
Yeah, but
so,
we all do that. And you did that like a year ago. That was you, Ian.
Hey, I can grow. I can mature, okay? I'm a 4.47 now, or 4.43, or whatever it is.
That's so great.
Oh, man, it's true. All right, guys, we're about to get into the topic. The bros' best secrets revealed on baiting your opponents. Jesse, I think we should kick it off with that video example of Tim.
All right. So for those of you who are listening rather than watching, me and Tim are playing together. We're receiving. I am the returning receiver. He's the non-returning receiver. I'm on the left. He's on the right, and he's about to flash his hand open, indicating that he wants to shift to the left. And there's the hand.
Nice.
Walk us through what we just saw.
Okay,
All right.
so so I flashed the hand, so Jesse knows that I'm going to switch there. He hits a nice deep return, I noticed, which is what you want if you're trying to do some switches and some crafty stuff. So what I do there is I kind of hang out in the middle, and I make Captain America think that down the line shot is going to be wide open for him to be aggressive with. And I don't move until just as he's making contact with that ball on his third, because I want the ball to go there. I definitely want to get him to do what I want to do so that I can be aggressive with that next shot with my fourth. And luckily his ball hit the net, so I didn't have to worry about it. But that's kind of what you want to do is if you want the ball, like especially this works great in mixed doubles, you will leave a whole swath of the court open to try to encourage the opponent to hit the ball there so that you can then pounce on it. And I do that unconsciously a lot because it's just a matter of positioning and manipulating for your opponents sort of where you want them to go with the ball so that you can be prepared for that and you can take advantage of that. And that's what I was trying to do in that clip. It worked. They got excited when they saw the open court and they netted the shot. So that's another outcome that you can hope for in that situation. But I don't know if you could see in that clip, but I was all about that shot. Like I was ready for that to come over and I was going to be aggressive with it. So,
and this is a good example. This is a good example of how your footwork and your positioning is like a bait. You want the shot. You want him to drive it up at you because you've got your backhand, your statue right there. I've even noticed when I played with you, Tim, and it was before I really recognized what you're doing. When we would switch, you were so late to switch. And I'm like, I'm running in behind. I'm about to run into you. Why are you doing this to me? And it was actually rather frustrating to me because we never communicated about it. But now that I kind of understand what you're doing, it's so effective because people get excited and they might mess it up, hit it long, hit into the net, or they'll hit it directly into you and you'll just put it away, which you're quite good at. So using your footwork and positioning is very useful in terms of baiting your opponent to create a scenario that's advantageous for you. Jesse and Stolp, do you guys have these sort of positional baits that you do?
Yeah. So first, I just want to say that I too was fooled by Tim's deception there, just like you were. The partner can be fooled by it. And the first few times he did it, and I think in that case, I was like, Tim, switch. Like, I think I yelled at him. I thought he had forgotten to switch.
Yep.
So it's very, it's a very effective artistry there.
Yeah, the communication though does lack in a lot of these kinds of cases. A lot of times the partners they don't communicate and they're just kind of being selfish. Well, I want the ball, so I'm going to leave this open, and they don't even they don't bother to tell their partner about what they're doing. So you get, in that case, you get a confused sensei over there. He's like, dude, I thought you said switch. Here I am. Like, I'm trying to switch. What are you doing? Why are you lying to me?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's a part of it that needs improvement in a lot of cases, and definitely with me and a lot of my partners.
Doesn't it add to the deception though? If I'm like switch, and then they think that we've really bollocksed it up, actually that's part of the deception, I think.
It probably is. It's just not part of the plan. Like if it happens to work out that way, then great. But
you really got to trust your partner, because you're just standing there. You're like, why are you out of position? Why are you out of position? You're going to screw us over, you know?
So I want to chime in just a little bit with footwork and body language. Like a lot of what Jesse gets deceived in this partnership with Tim in that case is because Tim's body language it freaks him out, right? Like you don't know what's going to happen. So for me, I'm a big poacher. I have long arms. I have quick, fast twitch muscles that I engage and want to poach everything. So shout out to all my poachers out there. And one of the secrets that I use, and this is I would go back, everything goes back to baseball with me, of course. But so what you're looking for, I try and fake my opponents that I have flat feet, so that they will hit over to my partner and then I can poach it if it's not a great shot over there. So I will curl my toes at the front of my shoes to have the back ends of my heels actually slightly up. You can't see that as my opponent because all you see is my toes into the ground. You can't see where my heels are, but I'm actually in a good athletic stance and position, ready to make those quick, fast twitch movements depending on where the ball goes. And where it comes from in baseball, as a pitcher, I would have what's called a balk move. Or so what would happen is, I'm a pitcher, I'm trying to pick off the guy at first. I would cheat. This is legal cheating if you want to think about it. But if you lift your heel up first and then pick off, that's actually a balk. But if you do it quick enough to where it's because you're supposed to move your feet at the same time. But if I go up one and then two, I have an advantage because the runner is looking at my back heel. The second I lift up my back heel, he's making his movement towards the next base. And that's when I'm picking off over at first. So I have a chance to get you out. Same thing with pickleball here is I am moving my heels above my toes. You just can't see that as my opponent. And then what I'll do is I will make instinctual poaching movements off of that, whether I poach or not, but you think I'm flat-footed. So it's this whole deception and baiting off of my footwork, pretending to be flat-footed, but actually being in an athletic position. It takes some training. It takes some thought. You got to think about what you're doing, but you can have a micro movement of your heels being up before your opponents see them, and you're able to make those jumps quicker.
I'll admit I got lost when we started talking about baseball because I've never played baseball. Are you talking about fake poaching, or?
I'm talking about actual poaching. I mean, I'm being ready to poach. So my footwork looks like I'm planted, but I'm not. And so like I'm ready to poach at any moment, because if I give away my poach too early, they're not going to give me that opportunity again, right? So I'm always going to be ready by giving the deception that my footwork I'm firmly planted. I can't go anywhere, but in reality, I'm ready to go. It's a small thing, but if you're a poacher, you'll probably understand what I'm talking about.
I prepare to not be ready by watching the butterflies fly by the court. So I've been keeping this in the back pocket from you guys for about 2 weeks now. We had a secret revealed to us in the dinking. Tim's nodding his head. This dinking secret that Tim's brother Pete told us about and that we needed to try. It's a positional bait that we were all very skeptical about when it was first brought up to us. And I tried it out a couple of times, and I am happy to report that I have something to say about it. But first, what it is
so excited to hear this.
Yeah. So the bait is you're dinking at the kitchen line, right? Like we all want to be right up at the kitchen line, maybe an inch off the line just for, safety's sake, but you're right up there. Well, Pete told us to take a full step or two off the kitchen line and dink from back there, because what happens is guys will recognize you're further back and will dink harder to you and farther out to you, but the ball's going to come higher. and then you lure them in a couple times with some normal dinks. And then when they send you a high ball that's deeper, you lunge in real quick and put it away. So I tried this, and I admit I was never able to pull off the lunge in and do the attack because the ball was too high. That never occurred. But what did happen, it's a very useful tactic to disrupt your opponent's dinking patterns. Because if you're up close and you like dink twice with them, and then you take these two big obnoxious steps back, they'll deliver this ball that it feels like they don't know where to go with it because you've got all this space, all this time. And so I was playing at Top Gun, and these balls would come in dinks, and I would have so much time to line up on them, hit some really good cut. I don't normally cut my dinks, but I had all this time to cut on them, and then they'd go in and they'd be difficult to deal with. And then it'd come back and have all this time, and I would cut, and I had so much time to deal with it. And then I would step in closer. And those were the ones. I wouldn't say it was the lunge that I was able to attack, but then if I would step in closer after that, the dinks would come in high. So effectively, you're still baiting them into a high dink, but it's not like this slasher thing that we're going to talk about that Jared does. It's you're stepping in and you're making them have to adjust, and they will deliver you bad dinks or into the net. So this positional bait, Tim, that Pete told us about, it does work, but I don't think it works in terms of eliciting a direct put away. But you absolutely will mess with your opponents by shifting where you are standing, constantly moving, and you can give yourself a lot more time to put a lot more junk on your dinks.
I love the idea that you don't have to be right up on the kitchen line to hit a dink. Some of my favorite plays and positions have been, oddly enough, when my opponents are at the kitchen line and I'm like in no man's land and I'm actually being aggressive from that area. For some reason, and I don't know what the pros would have to say about that. They would probably discourage it, I would think. But I just know that it's been pretty successful for me. And I would love to think that there's not a hard, fast rule that says that I have to be up at the kitchen line.
And the reason I was excited to share this with you is because it sort of simulates when you do your step back. You know how when you see there's a dink that you want to attack, whether it's dramatically on your forehand or backhand side, you'll take this massive step back to give yourself that time. As I was doing it, dinking this way, I had the actual thought in my head, if I were Tim, I would attack every single one of these because I have so much time to line up on it. So it's almost a new little tool that you can use. Instead of having to step back in real time, just step back you're in a dink battle, just deliver them a ball and step back. Because then the way you cut your dinks, you're going to put, you in particular, you're going to put so much junk on it, and it's going to come back and you're going to be like, I have all the time in the world to see this thing land. Boom, you're dead, right?
So Jesse looks skeptical.
Jesse, what's up, brother?
Well, it's taken me 3 years to get to the point where I'm actually being aggressive and being up at the non-volley zone, because I used to be much more comfortable playing defensively, and taking those balls off the bounce a foot or two behind the line. So I'm certainly not going to fall into bad habits. I mean, if it works for you, that's great. But I'm curious to hear what Stolp thinks, because I'll tell you, if I had Stolp's height and reach, I certainly would not be stepping back off that line.
Totally. And that's a great point. What you hear today as we spill our secrets, right? And Ian kind of questioned me, like, are you talking about, I'm a little lost. It's got to work for you, right? Like, use your strengths. My strengths are height, quick, fast twitch muscles, and like being able to take half of the kitchen away. I don't want to use a baiting technique like Ian was talking about to take away one of my best strengths, which is going to be a punch volley in the non-volley zone. So I wouldn't do that, but that's not saying that it wouldn't work. It's just not probably something I would put in my tool chest, but I'll try it and see what happens. Maybe it's more successful than my punch volley at the kitchen. We'll see.
And I even found that after I did my research phase, I did abandon it, because I think for it to be truly effective, you have to be a guy like Tim, who will step back, create space, and then just laser that ball right over the net, right in the gaps that you can find. I don't have that. I'm actually trying to develop it, Tim. I would love to be able to attack even in 50% of the success rate that you do in the way that you do. So it didn't work for me, but I did find it was an absolute disruptor. It does work to bait your opponents, at least into some sense of insecurity. They don't know where to go with the ball. They don't know what they're going to kind of deliver. So, Tim, I would love for you actually to be testing this particular thing out and just sit back. As Jesse, when you call a switch and then you step off the kitchen line, Jesse's looking like, where are you? Why aren't you there? It's because you're waiting to get a bait ball. So that was all about footwork and positioning when it comes to baiting. A more common bait, I would think, would be eliciting the speed up, delivering balls that try to entice your opponents to speed up the ball at you. Stolp, I think this is the one that you probably do the best and the most, and also have a different variation of it. So why don't you talk about eliciting the speed up?
For sure. And so, again, going back to my personal game, is I thrive in chaos. I like it when the plan gets thrown away and you get punched in the face. Like, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. That's the saying that I like to think about when it comes to this. So if you're so I like to get in knife fights. I like to test your hands. That's my game. And so when we're in these dink battles, and they're good dinks, I most likely am going to speed up a non-attackable ball to get you into a hands fight and see what you do and put pressure on you. So it's maybe the bait is, if you dink to me, you're not going to be in a traditional dink battle. I'm probably going to speed it up to you and or your partner. And here's the weakness to that, and where a lot of you who play with me often get me. If you get out of the way of my speed ups, guess where that ball's going? Out. It's out. So the one way to defend a speed up is to get the heck out of the way. And I think Jesse has done a really, really nice job to learn the matrix moves against me, because even if I'm not going to get in a hands battle with you, I'm coming after your between the bottom of your neck to your belly button to body bag you. And the defense is to get the heck out of the way. But that's my game. You hit that ball and we're in chaos mode. I like my chances. I'm going to speed up the ball any chance I get.
Yeah, especially because the terms of the baiting is, if someone can roll out of the way, that's fine. But if you're speeding up out of like a low yellow or even a red, most people aren't tuned into that. And so they probably won't roll out of the way. So you're all of a sudden picking a fight, and resetting from there is really tough. So you're now forcing them into a knife fight with you, which I think you probably will win definitely more than half of the knife fights that you instigate, because it's just where you're good at. You're longer, right? And if it comes out at a moment someone's not prepared for, you're going to bait them into doing that knife fight with you.
Right. And what I look for, and especially who I pick on, is people who like to orchestrate points in a traditional pickleball format. Like the people who are looking for, let's do the third shot drop, and then let's get into a dink game, and then let's do this because it's a chess match. Again, going back to everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. I'm going to be the first to swing, and then let's see what happens. And then let's see how your mental attitude adjusts from that point, win or lose. Like, did you handle that speed up in a way that I'm going to do it again or not? And so that's my baiting technique that I use most often.
I love it. Jesse, when it comes to trying to elicit a speed up from your opponents, I know that you've mentioned you like to leave gaps at the kitchen line, particularly on your forehand side.
Yeah, sometimes if let's see, the return of serve is going to somebody who's directly in front of me and I'm on the right, and I know they like to go up the alley, I will leave just a little extra room there because I like my forehand. And so, if it's kind of within my reach, that ball is in, but I have a good chance of returning it with power. If it's out of my reach, that's okay too, because the ball is going to be out. It's going to be wide.
Yeah, and then you've got your counterpunch right there with your forehand.
Right.
I love the contrast with you and me, Stolp, though, when it comes to these speed up balls, because I elicit speed ups in a very traditional sense, where you kind of take it from the untraditional punch in the face. I'm going to disrupt the chess match. I'm being very chess-like in my approach to do it. So when I'm dinking, I will specifically dink a little bit high to people's forehands, even like a high yellow, like a really low grain, which is it's definitely a risk. Like, and by the all these baits we're talking about, there's a risk reward ratio to all of these. Whether Tim is going to be delayed on his switch, or you're speeding up out of red, or Jesse's leaving the alley open, there's always a risk return where it could go poorly for you. But I like to leave my dinks just a little high, just a little bit too juicy, because then people are like, that's right in my forehand roll. Let me go tag this guy. But my particular best shot, I think, is my backhand counterpunch.
Mm-hmm.
So if my backhand is lined up on their forehand side, right across from me, they're going to be speeding up directly into my best shot. And so I will just leave those dinks high. I'll go there over and over and over again. And this is when I wanted to bring up how Justin and I beat Matt and Jason in our match. And by the way, I have absurd amounts of respect for Matt and Jason. So anything I say here, this is not disparaging. I can't believe we beat them. They've won like the last 3 tournaments they've played together. They are a vicious duo. So these guys are pickleball monsters. But we went into this, and Justin and I knew Justin had never played Jason, and we didn't really know what we were going to do. Justin's left-handed, so we got 4 hands in the middle. I'm better on the right, but this time I'm on the left. And so Matt he's 6'6", super long, incredible athlete. I mean, even longer than you, Stolp.
Mm-hmm.
He's insanely consistent, just all around every aspect of the game. He has it nailed down. But I don't think Matt has anything. He doesn't like have a special weapon, right? Like say Tim has the statue. Matt's just good at everything, but he doesn't have a trademark weapon. Where Jason, on the other hand, is extremely good at speeding up. I think his poaching is his trademark, but he's a little bit less consistent than Matt. He doesn't want to be in that traditional dink battle. He wants to mess things up, get nasty, get a knife fight. So we went into this, and I told Justin, I said, they're both great. Let's just pick one guy and see what happens. And we picked going after Jason. And the reason we did that was because we believed he would be able to not sustain a dink battle as long as Matt could. And what Jason is really good at feeds into what I'm really good at. So right initially from the onset, we just hammered everything at Jason. And I dinked like 3 really, I mean, we're talking about the first 4 or 5 rallies of the game. I dinked a high ball to Jason's forehand. He rolled that right at me. Boom. I counterpunched it down the middle. Boom. Counterpunched it. I did it 3 times in a row. And I could just see the cogs turning in his head like, what do I do? Because he and I was like immovable object, irresistible force. Someone was going to prove that the game was going to be decided between the two of us. And I got the upper hand in that initial matchup. And from there, it dictated the rest of the match, where we sent everything over to Jason. He appeared to be second guessing all the things he's good at doing. We put him in a position he was uncomfortable with. We completely iced out Matt, and Matt got cold. And we ended up winning 15-7. And we were in control the whole time. But in that game, I was baiting Jason so many times, and he ended up not actually taking it because it had been so successful, because I'd been so good at actually counterpunching that I removed what he was good at, even while trying to deliver it to him. So that's the flip side of a bait. Not just giving your opponent their shot because you think you can counter it. You then give them their shot that they don't take because your bait has been working so successfully. So that I know I hadn't given that synopsis to Stolp yet, but that's a really good example just from this last week where I deployed this very specific strategy and it worked really well in my favor. Now, the risk reward is Jason could have tagged me in the chest 3 times in a row. And then we would have been the ones like, well, crap, I'm not sure where to go from here or what to do. It was absolutely testing out the strategy, 2 goats on a bridge. Who's going to cross?
Ian, were you deliberately popping up to his forehand, like you mentioned? Were you actually employing that technique?
Deliberately. And the reason it also worked better is because they were like they weren't even half stacking. They were like 2/3 stacking. Jason likes to switch sometimes, but for the most part, they had Matt playing the left and he was playing the right, which put him in front of me. So his forehand's down the alley. So it even cuts off the options because he's got, that great inside out thing he does. He can't do it on that side because that'll send the ball out of bounds. So all I had to do was stack up on my alley. And then if it was to my right shoulder, I've got that fade punch that I bring it back to the middle. So he didn't have anywhere to go. So yes, I was deliberately trying to feed his forehand. And because I know, and this is another thing, and this is a little bit off baiting, but it's something I want to talk about for our listeners, whether you're kind of new to pickleball. As you play more, you will learn what shots are available to your opponents when. I know that Jason, if he's on the left side, has the full diagonal spectrum of the court. He can go corner to corner with that forehand. But if he's on the right side, 50% of his shots where he can actually put the ball aren't in play because they're out of bounds. So you have to learn where your opponents are and what shots are available to them. And then it can completely locked him into such a narrow window. By our 4 or 5 standards, it was a narrow window, even though it's not like, it's pretty vast. I could cover that entire window with my single backhand counterpunch. So yes, it was a deliberate choice. It worked out really well in our favor. So yeah, there's the answer to your question.
I have to just jump in and say to the Jasons out there who sound, play style very similar to mine. We never learn our lesson against that, Ian. Like you deliberately dink higher. Like I'm going to do that and get beat by you. I've been playing with you for 2 years, a year and a half, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you beat me on that a lot. And I've never learned my lesson. And it's just like, because as an aggressive alpha, a popped up dink means attack. And you have counterpunch, but I am always still going to attack. And some days I beat you, some days you beat me, but it is a mental game of chess that's like, oh crap, I can't continue to do that because he's wanting me to do that. And then there'll be days where you're like, you can't pop it up back to me because I'm going to hit you in the chest 3 times. But it's such a risk reward, and us aggressive alphas will never learn our lesson.
And by the way, it needs to be said that that's good, Stolt. But if you are going to bait someone, make sure you have the tools to pull it off. Like if you don't have a good counterpunch, don't feed a guy who likes speedballs right to his forehand. That's not going to go well for you, right?
Yeah.
So and that's why Tim, I want to go to you on this. You told me about a bait you do that blew my mind. I'd never heard of it before. You deliberately leave returns short because you said you like to elicit the drive out of bounds.
Yeah. So it depends on who you're playing against. This is not a good strategy against everybody. Let's make that clear. But there are some guys that they are just, they've been hitting these deep returns all day. And so when they get a chance at a short return, they just lick their chops. And it's like, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to attack this. You can always tell when that ball is going 10 feet out. Like you can always tell. And these are the guys that it actually, I'm not saying do it on every return, but for sure, it makes sense to leave some of these returns a little bit short on purpose to elicit that 10-foot out forehand error, because it's more common than you might think. You think of these short balls, oh, good, I got a short ball. This will be easy. But guys get over eager to hit that all the time. That is way more common than anybody realizes. You see these errors all the time and you think of it as like a one-off, but it's pretty common. So in reality, if you are the guy that's hitting that short ball, if you are the third ball hitter and you get a short return, you're so close to the net already when you hit that. You do not have to overhit that third. You really don't. That takes a lot of discipline to keep yourself from doing that, because I understand just how delicious of an opportunity that is, just to show your aggression and power in that instance, but you really don't have to. And so many people have not learned that lesson.
How do you hit it though? It's got to be backspin, right? Because the topspin's still going to leave it too high.
It really doesn't matter how you hit it. If you hit that ball flat, so it has more of a true bounce to it, they're still likely to hit that out. If you hit it short, or if you hit it with some underspin on it, and so there's not much of a bounce, they may actually see that and be more careful with it. So you kind of don't want to hit it too well.
Yep. Baiting is all about this chess match. Actually, I love this. So we got a short time here, so we're going to wrap up in just a few moments. But Jesse,
I do want to add something really quick.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So Jesse was saying that he likes to leave a lot of space on his forehand. And Stolp was saying that us alphas just cannot resist, even if the guy at the net has proven that he can take all your power. I just want to echo that. That is so true. Like I was playing against Ian. It was Jesse and me versus Ian and Louie in the league match. And I have never seen someone counter my speed ups as well as Ian did that day. And these were shots that I would hit 10 times out of 10. I did not overdo it on these speed ups. And time after time, Ian was there to meet that. And I didn't change a thing because that is my strength. That is my game. And this is something that I think us alphas really need to work on. And Jesse, if you leave a lot of space on your forehand side, I'm going to try to beat you to that space. I don't care if that's a bait. Like, I'm convinced if I see that, I see a challenge right there. And I'm like, I don't care what he's doing. I'm going to hit
nodding his head. He's with you all the way.
I am going to hit that spot because I'm just that good. And I think we can really overdo it sometimes as alphas. Like, we really have to get smarter and resist some of those alpha tendencies.
Nope. We're going to stay in the dumb lane because you know what happens is if you've seen Bull Durham and there's that mound visit with Kevin Costner and Nuke Lelouch, and he goes, he's sitting on the fastball, give him the curveball. He's like, yeah, well, he ain't seen my fastball. That's kind of what I think about in all these situations. Like no one's going to beat my fastball, and I'm going to show you. And that's what I'm going to throw. And then what happens? They hit a 600-foot home run off of me. And it's just like, well, he hit the bull. He won a free steak. Good on him. It's like, I'm still going to attack. Yeah.
Yeah, but the catcher told him the fastball was coming. So that was cheating.
Yeah. Well, it's the same as baiting.
The analogy is perfect, Tim.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Jesse, to wrap it up, I know that you, Stolp, and I could all probably talk about this, but I want to throw it to you. The final bait is baiting for an Ernie. How do you set that up? Like, and I know we've talked about Ernies before. So for some of our listeners who've heard all of our podcasts, this may be regurgitated information, but in order for an Ernie to be super effective, most of the best Ernies I've ever seen have been baited Ernies. Talk about it real quick.
Well, usually, so if I'm on the right and you're great at this, you'll draw me to my left. And then you'll go back to my right to the alley and make me lean. I'm off balance. The ball's behind me. I'm looking down at the ball. And then the next thing I know, there's nowhere for me to go with that ball except up the alley. And the next thing I know, you're shoving it down my throat at 90 miles an hour.
Yep. Yeah.
Stop.
Jump in there. I kind of know you do a lot of Ernies as well.
This is when I'll do the dinking to the middle if the dinking is in the middle, I will push that ball down the alley about a foot or two behind the kitchen line, looking for that flat paddle face and your head down. Yep. That is my indicator to head across the kitchen in my Ernieing position and meet that dink that's happening from my opponent with that one place to go straight towards me and greet them with a nice paddle and into their feet, basically.
And both of you mentioned, which I'm glad you did, because I think it's the most important component to baiting for the Ernie, is you have to move them. If they're already established near the alley and you're just giving them a dink that they can meet out in front and just lift it, it's not going to work. But if you have moved them to the middle, or most of the dinks are going to the middle, if they have to take any type of a step, I mean, if you draw them hard the way I've drawn you in the past, Jesse, like great, that's even better. But if they have to meet the ball kind of behind them or take a full step, that's when you should be thinking, I can do this, or what you should be looking for to set it up. I hit 8 Ernies in our bronze medal match against Mike and Jim. Only one of them came back. Jim has just some of the best hands ever. I hit the Ernie, he brought it back, but it was a shoulder high floater that Justin then put away right afterwards. But I had 7 direct winners off this because and we lost the game, all right? But those guys are older. They're 67 and 70 years old who beat us, which is, we're not going to talk about that. The age differential was ridiculous. Justin and I were combined 51 years of age. They were combined 137 years of age, and they beat us 11-8, 11-9. So my pride has been stung from that. But
it's such an old person's game, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. But I kept moving Mike because they were stacking Mike Lee in front of me. And I just kept moving him, and he hit just several high balls to me that I was able to jump over. So that is the bait for the Ernie. Anything before we close out here that we haven't touched on?
I just wanted to go back to your description of your tactics in that game against Jason and Matt. Jason is a really, really good player. You got the better of him this time, but I'm eager to see what he pulls out the next time you go up against him, because he'll have some new tricks in his bag for sure. But I must say that your tactics and execution were superb, and I take my hat off to you. I think you are the new sensei. Really, like, that is just first class, Ian.
We have a coronation going on right now.
Yeah,
this is exciting.
Really, really nice, really good stuff.
The heir apparent takes the reins. I love it.
And I will
Thank you,
say this
guys.
though, really quick, Ian. If you're able to do that against someone, if you're able to beat them at their strengths, when it's somebody that is as good as Jason is when it comes to poaching and speed ups, or me when it comes to speed ups, like, you've deflated us. Like, you have gotten the better of us, and we have no idea what to do. So, dude, hats off to you. You had a great tournament.
Love it. Every matchup with pickleball, it's all the variables, all the different things. It's so fascinating, which is why I think so many people keep coming back to this game. It as much as we've played, and we have played a lot, it continues to surprise me and deliver new gifts. So, everyone, thank you for joining us for this episode of the PickleBros podcast. We really appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe to all the channels. We're on every podcasting platform. We would love to continue to get more eyeballs as we deliver the best pickleball content. No one else is having this pickleball content out there. Pros, paddles, drilling. This is the only place you're going to get real on-court talk. Thank you all for joining us. We love you. Stay safe and stay out of the kitchen.